I thought I was helping an injured woman until she led me into the woods. I had made a trip down to my brother's wedding on the East Coast, and I was driving back to the West. It was a very long drive, around 5 whole days, and to keep it from being any longer, I basically just drove for as long as I could every single day until I got tired. On the 4th day, I kept driving into the night with the plan to pull off at a motel whenever I felt like I needed to. It was around 10 p.m. when I got to a portion of the road that was very barren, with no other cars, no semi-trucks, and just empty, desolate roads. I was actually a little worried about how long I'd have to go before the next motel, because my phone had no service on this stretch of road. At least I had chugged a couple of energy drinks, so I was pretty wide awake for the time being. I drove for about 30 minutes without seeing a single other car on the road when all of a sudden, I saw someone up ahead. It was a woman on the side of the road, waving her arms at me like she needed help. She was kind of hunched over, and her clothes looked dirty and disheveled, like she had just crawled out of the woods and was possibly injured. I was driving so fast, and she came into my headlights so suddenly, that I initially just sped right past her. But the longer I continued down the road, the more guilty I started to feel. Way out here, isolated from everyone and everything, with no service if she needed help or was hurt or lost, and I didn't help her, I was essentially leaving her out there to die. And for some basic reference, I had never picked up a hitchhiker before, and I definitely would not be picking up some random guy on the side of a creepy road like this. However, since it was a woman, and she looked injured, I didn't feel as threatened. So, a little ways down the road, I decided to turn around and at least pull up to her and ask if she was okay, just to get a feel for what was going on. If I even got the slightest sense that something was off, I would leave immediately and call the police as soon as I got somewhere with service. I drove back, and when I got to where I had seen her before, I noticed she wasn't near the road anymore. She had moved back closer to the tree line, but she was still standing there, waving at me again for help. I passed by, turned the car around again, and pulled right up to where she was, except this time, she was gone. I sat there in the car for a full minute, but she didn't come back. It was like she had just disappeared in the short time it took for me to turn around and pull up. I left the car running, and stupidly, I got out. I walked over to the shoulder of the road and started looking around for any sign of her. It was completely silent outside and pitch dark, except for the light from my headlights shining onto the road. Past maybe 5 feet into the trees, I could barely see anything until something moved. At first, I only saw a shape shifting in the trees ahead of me. But as my eyes started to adjust and focus, I realized it was the woman. She was much deeper into the woods now, far away from the road, and eerily, she raised her arms again and started waving like she still needed help. Faintly, I could hear her voice calling out too. It sounded weak, like she had been screaming for days, dehydrated, sickly. I started walking slowly into the trees. Obviously, I was skeptical and completely creeped out, but for some reason, I was still convinced she was in danger. It wasn't until I had walked way too close to her that I realized how it felt like I was being lured out of my car and deeper into the woods. And that realization was disturbing. The moment it hit me, I stopped. The woman suddenly stopped waving. Her voice stopped too, unnaturally, almost like it had been cut off instantly. Now that she was closer and not moving, I noticed something else that felt wrong. Her figure. She was very tall, not inhuman, but easily around 6 feet 2 inches, which is very tall for a woman. And something about her proportions just seemed off in a way I couldn't explain. Maybe it was just the way she was standing. But as we both stood there, between the trees, staring at each other in the darkness, she slowly moved. She took a step closer to me and tilted her head slightly to the side. And just for a second, her face moved out of the shadow enough for me to see it more clearly. What I saw was horrifying. I don't think it was a woman. The face looked masculine, uncanny. Something about it instantly sent chills through my entire body. I turned and ran. I sprinted back through the trees and onto the road. And as I did, I could hear that same weak voice behind me, calling out for help again. I jumped into my car and floored it down the road. After that, I was wide awake for the rest of the night, driving without stopping. I still don't know what or who that thing was out there, but I'm sure of one thing. If I had gone any deeper into those woods, I wouldn't have made it back out.